If you have ever felt like the dumbest person in the room, if you constantly doubt your intelligence while watching others seem so sure of themselves, what I am about to tell you might flip everything you thought you knew about your own mind. Stay with me. You think you are not that smart. You look around and see people who speak with confidence, who seem to have all the answers, who never second guess themselves, and you question everything. You overthink, you doubt, you assume everyone else just gets it, and you are the one struggling to keep up. But here is the truth. The fact that you think you are not smart might be the biggest sign that you actually are, because real intelligence does not walk around announcing itself. It hides, it doubts, it questions, and most of the time it has no idea how rare it really is. Let me tell you about Sarah. She is 28 years old, works in marketing, quiet, thoughtful, always the one listening in meetings while others talk. She spent most of her life thinking she was average, maybe even below average. She struggled in school, not because she could not learn, but because the way teachers explained things never made sense to her, so she assumed she was slow. Her colleagues would throw out ideas in meetings with total confidence. She would sit there, turning the idea over in her mind, seeing all the ways it could fail, all the gaps no one else mentioned. And because she saw the problems, she thought she was negative, critical, not creative enough, not smart enough. But then one day, her boss pulled her aside after a meeting. He said, "You know that idea everyone loved? You were the only one who saw it would not work. And you were right. I wish you had spoken up sooner." That moment changed everything for her because she realized her brain was not slow. It was just working differently. While everyone else was reacting, she was analyzing. While they were speaking, she was thinking. And that is not a weakness. That is intelligence. So if you have ever felt like you are not smart, here are 10 signs that your brain is actually operating at a level most people will never reach. Sign number 1, you overthink everything. Most people see overthinking as a problem, and sometimes it is. But here's what they miss. Overthinking is a sign of a highly active mind. You are not just accepting things at surface level. You are digging deeper, asking questions, seeing patterns, considering possibilities that other people do not even notice. People with high IQs tend to have what psychologists call high cognitive complexity. That means your brain naturally processes information on multiple levels. You are not just thinking about what is happening. You are thinking about why it is happening, what it means, what could happen next, and what you should do about it. That is exhausting, but it is also powerful. Sarah used to hate how much she overthought every decision, choosing a career path, sending an email, even picking what to say in a conversation. But when she started paying attention, she realized her overthinking had saved her more times than she could count. She did not make impulsive mistakes. She did not ignore red flags. She thought ahead. And that is a gift, not a flaw. If your mind never stops analyzing, that is not stupidity. That is depth. Sign number 2, you are highly self-critical. You probably think everyone else is smarter than you. You focus on what you do not know instead of what you do. You replay conversations in your head, cringing at what you said, convinced you sounded like an idiot. But here is the paradox. The smarter you are, the more aware you are of how much you do not know. Psychologists call this the Dunning-Kruger effect. People with low intelligence tend to overestimate their abilities. They think they know more than they do. But people with high intelligence, they are painfully aware of the gaps in their knowledge. So they underestimate themselves. If you constantly feel like you are not smart enough, that is not proof you are dumb. That is proof you are smart enough to recognize complexity. Sarah would finish a project and immediately see everything she could have done better. Meanwhile, her coworkers would submit mediocre work with total confidence. She thought they were smarter because they seemed so sure. But the truth? They just did not see the flaws. She did. And that awareness, that ability to self-correct, that is what separates good from great. If you are your own harshest critic, your brain is not broken. It is just set to a higher standard. Sign number 3, you prefer deep conversations over small talk. Small talk drains you. You do not care about the weather. You do not want to talk about traffic or what someone did last weekend. You want to talk about ideas, about why people do what they do, about what really matters. And because most conversations are not like that, you stay quiet. You listen, you nod, and you think, maybe I am just not good with people. Maybe I am awkward. Maybe I am not interesting. But that is not it. You are just wired for depth. Research shows that people with higher intelligence tend to prefer meaningful conversations, not because they are anti antisocial, but because surface level interaction does not stimulate their brain. It feels empty, like junk food for the mind. Sarah used to think she was bad at socializing because she never knew what to say at parties, but then she would have a one-on-one conversation with someone about something real, and suddenly she would come alive. Hours would pass, ideas would flow. She was not bad at conversation, just needed substance. If small talk bores you, that is not a social deficiency, that is intellectual selectivity. Sign number 4, you feel like you learn differently than everyone else. You did not do well in traditional school. Maybe you struggled with tests. Maybe lectures put you to sleep. Maybe you needed to understand why before you could memorize how. And because the system was not built for the way your brain works, you assumed you were not smart. But intelligence is not one size fits all. Some people learn by listening, some by doing, some by asking 1,000 questions until the pieces finally click. If you are the type who needs to understand the whole picture before the details make sense, that is not slow learning. That is systems thinking, and that is rare. Sarah failed math in high school, not because she could not do it, but because no one explained why the formulas worked. Just memorize this. Just follow the steps. But her brain did not work that way. Years later, she taught herself coding, and suddenly math made sense. Because she could see how it applied. She could see the logic. She was not bad at learning. The teaching just never matched her brain. If school made you feel dumb, that does not mean you are. It might just mean you are too smart for the system. Sign number 5, you notice things other people miss. You pick up on patterns, on inconsistencies, on small details that do not add up. Someone tells a story and you notice the timeline does not make sense. A plan gets proposed and you immediately see the flaw no one else mentioned. You watch people and you can tell when something is off, even if you cannot explain how you know. This is called high perceptual reasoning. Your brain processes information faster and more accurately than most. You see connections, you detect contradictions, you read between the lines, but because other people do not see what you see, you second guess yourself. Maybe I am reading too much into this. Maybe I am being paranoid. Maybe I am wrong. Except most of the time, you are not. Sarah would notice when her boss was stressed before anyone else did. She would sense tension in a room that everyone else seemed oblivious to, and because no one else said anything, she thought she was imagining it. But later, things would unfold exactly as she sensed. She was not paranoid. She was perceptive. If you see what others miss, that is not overthinking. That is high-resolution awareness. Sign number 6, you get bored easily. You start projects with excitement and lose interest halfway through. You jump from hobby to hobby. You cannot sit through a movie without checking your phone. People call you distracted, unfocused, unable to commit. But here is what they do not understand. Boredom is not always laziness. Sometimes it is understimulation. Your brain craves complexity. It craves challenge. And when something becomes predictable, repetitive, or too easy, your brain checks out. Not because you lack discipline, but because you lack engagement. Studies show that people with higher IQs have a lower tolerance for boredom. They need novelty. They need growth. They need mental stimulation. Without it, they disengage. Sarah would start a new skill, get decent at it, and then lose interest. She thought she was a quitter, but really she was a fast learner. Once her brain understood the system, it wanted a new challenge. She did not lack focus. She lacked stimulation. If you get bored easily, you are not lazy. You are just hungry for more. Sign number 7. You feel misunderstood most of the time. You say something and people take it the wrong way. You make a joke and it lands flat. You try to explain your thoughts and halfway through you can see people have already tuned out. So you stop talking. You stop sharing. You start to think, maybe I am just not good at communicating. Maybe my ideas do not make sense. But the problem is not you. It is the gap. When your brain operates at a different speed or depth than the people around you, communication becomes translation. You are thinking 5 steps ahead and they are still on step 1. You are connecting dots they have not even seen yet. That does not make you bad at communication. It makes you advanced. Sarah would explain an idea at work and get blank stares. Then someone else would say the exact same thing in simpler terms and everyone would nod. She used to think that meant she was not clear, but really, she was just too detailed. She saw layers others did not. If people do not get you, that is not proof you are wrong. It is proof you are operating on a different frequency. Sign number 8, you are curious about everything. You ask why a lot. Why do people do that? Why does this work this way? Why is that the rule? And when someone says that is just how it is, it does not satisfy you. You need to understand. This relentless curiosity is one of the strongest markers of intelligence. Not because smart people know everything, everything, but because they want to. They are not satisfied with surface answers. They dig, they question, they explore. Sarah was the kid who drove her parents crazy asking why. Why is the sky blue? Why do we have to go to school? Why can people not just be nice? And when adults could not answer, she thought she was annoying. But she was not annoying. She was intelligent. If you are endlessly curious, you are not difficult. You're intellectually alive. Sign number 9. You do not feel the need to prove yourself. You do not brag. You do not name drop. You do not post every accomplishment online. Not because you have nothing to share, but because external validation does not drive you the way it drives others. People with high intelligence tend to have a strong internal locus of control. That means they measure success by their own standards, not by applause. They do not need to be the loudest in the room. They are comfortable being underestimated. Sarah watched coworkers celebrate every small win on social media while she quietly did the work. She used to think that meant she was not ambitious, but really, she just did not need the noise. If you do not feel the need to prove how smart you are, that is not modesty. That is confidence. Sign number 10. You doubt this list applies to you. Right now, you are probably thinking, yeah, but I am not that smart. Other people are way smarter. I just got lucky. I am probably average at best. And that right there is the final sign, because truly intelligent people rarely recognize their own intelligence. They are too aware of what they do not know, too focused on where they fall short, too humble to claim the title. If you made it to the end of this video and still think, nah, this is not me, that is exactly the kind of thinking that proves it is. So here's the truth. You are not dumb. You never were. You just have a brain that works differently. A brain that questions, that analyzes, that sees depth where others see surface. And the world was not built for that. So you learn to doubt yourself. But doubt is not proof of stupidity. It is proof of awareness. And awareness is the foundation of growth. So stop waiting for permission to see yourself clearly. Stop comparing your complexity to someone else's confidence. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are not less than. You are just finally starting to see what has been true all along. If this resonated, drop a comment with one word that describes how you feel right now. Seen, relieved, validated, confused. Whatever it is, say it. You are not alone. Subscribe to Mental Compass. Let your mind find its direction.